Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday. How are you today? I am doing a little bit of a part 2 follow-up from last week's episode about how I kind of got started and just like basking in the book vibes. And this week I wanted to continue to talk about the book. It's not old news for me yet. Still going, still basking, still enjoying myself. But I wanted to talk a little bit about trust in the process and how I really had to lean a lot into trust and try and navigate around when I was, using it as a cop-out and not. So really challenging my own accountability and integralness about the whole entire process as well. So I have a couple of just bullet points of the places where I had to go and lean into trust that everything was going to work out okay and that this was going to happen. So bear with me while I kind of let go of those, but I'm just going to pretty much tell you the story of each of the points in hopes that, Walnut, this might help encourage you to know that it's not a fucking walk in the park, right? It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all like, oh, yay, I did a thing. And so champagne all day, every day. While that's so fun and so important and delicious, things were a little bit shit as well. And I had to really consciously use my mindset and my emotional intelligence to get my head around the things being shit and decide how I was gonna think about the circumstances that had happened. So waffling without actually saying anything, let's get into it. So I wrote a book. If you're new here, hello, my name is Laz. I'm your podcast host and I'm also now an author. I wrote a book. I published a book. I am an author. What the actual hell? It's still on pre-sale for a little bit. Pre-sale will be closing very soon, especially if you're listening to this episode live. So I don't know how much longer I'll have it on for, but you can go into the show notes if you want to purchase a copy. Otherwise, it is now already on Amazon, Book Depository, all your favorite online bookshops where you can get it as well. So yay, I wrote a book. And I think that statement in itself required full trust, because I mentioned in the episode last week about how I didn't actually think it was a thing until I'm on the arse end of the thing and being like, oh my God, I did it. Because while I was still writing for over a year, just bits and bobs, drips and drabs, I never combined that with the thought of I'm actually going to do it. It was one of those things like, oh yeah, I'd like to go skydiving. But will the opportunity present itself? I don't know, but I'm probably not going to run out and chase the opportunity willy-nilly, it was a really conscious decision to go, oh no, this is going to happen. So the first kind of step into trust was when I hired Rachel for coaching to help me through this process. That was kind of like my announcement to the universe and myself that it was time to take this seriously. And I actually kind of baby stepped my way to that big investment by planting little seeds in how I mentioned group programs I was in, where I was like, I'm going to write a book. I wrote quietly, but it was via post. I'm going to write a book by the end of 2021. Whispering in case it doesn't come true, just in case of emergency. So there were drips and drabs into a couple of friends like, oh, I'm writing a book. But my going, Rachel, I want to hire you because I need to hire this book. I need your help. bam, here's my couple of $1,000, pay in full, let's do this, was also my smack on my own butt to be like, okay, this is serious now. If you want to do this, if you want to make this happen, let's do it. And I had the option to, pay in monthly installments and stuff like that. But I decided, no, I'm going to pay in full, and I'm serious about that. So for me to pay in full and not month by month was one sign of like, nope, I'm going to take myself seriously here, and know that even if, and know that this, I want to say is going to be worth it somehow. But you know how if you pay something off month by month, you can you have the opportunity to almost pull out if you want to. Whereas paying in full to me was like, no, this is mine, I'm owning it. Kind of like lay buying an item or something. It doesn't really feel like it's 100% yours until you've done it all and paid it all off. Something like that. That's a bad metaphor, but you get what I mean, right? So that was one place where I really had to sink into that. Nope, dollar bills. It's only money. It's only energy. This is me taking myself seriously, and tension, real conch about the situation. The next part where I had to really sink into trust, and I touched on this a little bit in last week's episode, was where I started to feel flat as fuck. I started to feel like, I'm not feeling this vibe. I'm not feeling the vibe of this idea. It's after 2020 now. So, all the tarot cards of 2021, they're all different because I'd had another year ahead reading as well with different cards. So it's like I wasn't really feeling aligned with the cards anymore either. But this little part of me wanted it to be like a little bit woo-woo and a little bit author and a little bit this, because I am a little bit of all the things. And it just made me not want to like continue forward. And I was like, what the fuck, Les? You've spent like thousands of dollars and now you don't want to write anymore? What's going on? And the cool thing about coaching is you can just talk about it because all the attention's on you. So Rachel and I had a little chat about it. And I remember like doing the voice recording and being like, yeah, so part of me just wants to scrap it all. And I know that if I scrap it all, it won't be a big deal, but blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to scrap it. And like trying to justify it in my head. And then when I got a voice memo back from Rachel, who kind of was just like, she talked about the idea process and sometimes how ideas go stagnant, sometimes they float away and go to somebody else and things like that. And that's why moving on ideas is so important, because when you get the idea, if you just let it stay, it's just going to fizzle out, right? Wait, sorry, Walnut, I can't remember what words just came out of my mouth. I hope you understand what that sentence actually meant, because I don't think it made sense. Okay, next point. But yeah, so scrapping the whole idea was a really scary concept to get around, because I was wondering, why the hell don't I feel like doing this? And even though I'm a generator, even though I've got that life force energy, that sacral like buzz where I can always do the things, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling the vibe. And I could tell from stuff that was coming out that it just wasn't like, it wasn't that delish. It was just like, So I scrapped it. I was like, fuck it, I'm starting again. And the fresh page thing, right, which is the most scary thing, to have a full blank page with nothing on it. And but the cool thing was that I had that draft one. Well, it wasn't even a draft number one. I don't even call it a draft of the book. But I had those pieces of beautiful golden nuggets where I'd like given my heart about topics and things like that I was able to recycle and reuse, just in a different, not necessarily with the heading of a tarot card being the main umbrella of what I was talking about, but use those situations, kind of like I do with the podcast, right? I don't know if I mentioned to you that the book is much like the podcast. It's just little snips of my little brain. So that was where I really had to lean in, and I buzzed out on how that felt, to just go, I had this grand thing and I'm going to let it go. And thinking of that at the forefront of my mind, like, goodbye, idea. I'm letting you go. Be free. Be free into the ocean of the world because you're not my idea anymore. And maybe it will go to someone else. I believe Rachel even said that she had a client who had a similar idea. So maybe my idea like plonked out of my brain and into hers, which I think is a beautiful visual moment, especially because I'm a hoarder. So I don't like to like throw things away. So that my idea floated to someone else makes me feel very happy. The next part of leaning into trust was really with Walnut Fest and letting Walnut Fest go. When I hired Rachel, I had so many pressures of things that I wanted to get done. I wanted to publish the book. I wanted to celebrate 100 episodes in like a way that I hadn't before. And I wanted to have Walnut Fest, but it wasn't feeling like right. And because the book was released on, Walnut Wednesday's second birthday, I can't believe I've been in Walnut Wednesday for 2 years. Like, this is craziness. This is such like a big, huge shift. But anyway, Walnut Fest to me needs to be in October. It was at the end of October in 2020, so it needed to be at the end of October, and it was to celebrate the birthday, right? So I had all of these things that it quote unquote needed to be, and I was putting so much pressure on myself. All of this while still releasing podcasts every week, doing Reiki, working full time, other work, like all these things that I was like really pressuring on myself that needed to be done. So I got through the 100 episodes, which was awesome, which is still around if you want to go back and have a look at what that was. That was a really fun, big deal day. But yeah, Walnut Fest, within the process of doing writing as well, Walnut Fest was going to be something where I would launch potentially, hypothetically, the book on the back end of that and be like, and surprise, maybe I'll do a talk and I'll be a speaker in Walnut Fest. And there were all these things with it, right? There was like, oh my gosh, I have to invite the same people back because I loved them so much. I still do love them so much, but I haven't really worked with most of these people this year, so it doesn't make any sense. Overthinking. It needs to be at the end of October because of this month. Doesn't make sense. Overthinking. Oh, that means I have to have my book finished by this time. Doesn't make sense. Overthinking. So just, you can see how I spiraled, and sometimes when I spiral so much, I fuck things off as a cop out because I'm like, oh, it just is too hard. But with this, I really worked through the fact that, why do I need to have it? Who am I doing it for? Yes, I had so much fun. Yes, I am biased, but I still think it's the best festival on the whole internet that I've ever seen. But it didn't feel like fun to me this year. It felt like stressed. It felt like I had to make sure I had all these things done, and it felt like I had to invite people. And then there's new people that I worked with as well that I feel like I had to invite as well. And then that brought me more pressure. So it just didn't feel aligned, I suppose the word is, to do Walnut Fest. And working through something I mentioned I'm a hoarder, right? It's really hard for me to let things go. And it was quite a working process to relax into that. I don't think I mentioned Walnut as well. Between that, I was also renovating, buying a house and renovating, which sucked my soul. You're currently sitting in Walnut HQ with me, but the renovation process, really sucked the life out of me as well. So it's actually been a really tough year. I digress, but Walnut Fest, yeah. So cancelling that actually took the biggest weight off of my shoulders ever imaginable. And I actually had pre-booked annual leave from my 9 to 5 to host Walnut Fest. But the reason why I took that leave was to make sure I had that time to, wake up early and wake up when the speakers were waking up and stuff like that. But I ended up just taking it as a little staycation, and I had a good couple of days. I got a Reiki healing. I didn't do much walnut work at all. I was on leave off my normal work as well. So I sunk into relaxing and doing nothing and just letting things happen as they kind of should. And in that week, I actually finished. I think I either finished my first draft or I got the book edited for the first time as well. So I had a really like feminine energy kind of week, which was very delicious. And the last couple of things were where I had the opportunity to press the publish button, and I noticed a couple of things wrong in the editing in the PDF that I needed to get changed. So I could have pressed the publish button on Walnut Wednesday's second birthday, but there were a couple of things missing that I wanted to make sure that they were in the book, and this like fucked me off immensely because it meant I had to wait a whole nother 3 days, and it meant I had to let that particular date in my head go and things like that. Which was, again, as a hoarder, as someone who holds on to things and keeps things, really frustrating. So that was another thing like Walnut Fest that I had to really work through and be like, why is this date important? Because I still launched the pre-sales on that day. I still am talking about my book this week. The book is still in some ways in honor of the podcasts and Walnut Wednesday's second birthday. So why does this number have to be the be all end all of my process? Because the only person that's going to remember the bloody number is me. The only person who's going to remember the date is me. Everyone else is going to be like, yay, well, I'm going to buy your book when I can, on payday, next month, whenever. They're not going to think, oh, I'm going to buy this on the second birthday because that's what means the most. Does that make sense, Walnut? So that's another thing where I had to really sink into the fact that let it go, because it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And as someone who is like a hyper organized and quite OCD and a bit like, no, it needs to be this way or else, but I don't really know what actually is, that was really hard. And my week off was quite a lot of processing with these sort of trust moments. I was quite energetically drained from just the year in general, but also I did a lot of internal processing throughout that time. And the final thing that I had to really lean into trust with was, there's a plane going past. I don't know if you can hear that. Well, not if you can, I apologize. But the other thing that I had to really lean into was when I was going to press the order button for my books. I got the yay, everything is complete. You can now buy the things if you want to. All you have to do is click OK and all the stuff. I thought I better just check this bloody PDF one more time. And what did I notice? A spelling error. There is a spelling error in the book. And I was like, talked to Rachel about it, and I was like, this is going to fuck me off so much. This is going to actually fuck me off so much. But long story short, I kept it in there. There's a letter missing. It's the letter Y. And so if you get the book, Walnut, let me know if you spot the missing Y, because I thought this could actually just be a fun little game. And also, it wouldn't be my book if there wasn't something not grammatically correct, because I like to make up fake words. When I write, I write how I talk. So it's not in like linear sentences anyway. It's a bit razzle dazzle. So I kept it in there. I thought, if I delete this again, I'm going to have to wait another couple of days, and I don't want to. It just makes it that little bit more piece of me. But I had to work through that moment of, oh my God, I'm going to be so annoyed. Just do it. It's only 2 more days. You've done this before. But that was really overpowered by the fact that, like, oh, the walnuts who purchased the book know me for me. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't have a missing Y. So, challenge for you when you read the book, spot the missing Y and let me know what it is. Share, tag me at Walnut Wednesday on all the social medias, and let's make this a thing. Let's do a prize if you spot the missing Y, something like that. Let's do something fun with it. But that was another moment where I had to just like really deeply be like, is it gonna ruin your life if there is a word that doesn't have a Y on the end? And that was like the final straw. That was like okay, this is the only thing that needs to be changed. And again, that mind conscious choosing to have that intentionally was a big moment of just like, lean into trust. So that's my walnutting this week, Walnut. I am coming clean about all the bits of my book process that were a bit shit, because what is life if not a bit shit on some days? And I would love to know what you think of this episode. If you resonate with any points, I would love to hear from you. So jump into the Walnut Tree on Facebook and let me know. Share and tag me at Walnut Wednesday if you enjoyed this episode with any bits that kind of like resonate or that you want to talk more about. I would love to hear from you on all the platforms. But all in all, Walnut, my walnutting is that I really had to trust myself in this process and not rely on anybody else, not rely on my coach or my support systems. I really had to trust myself and my decisions as the creator of Walnut Wednesday, the book, which is a massive walnutting in itself, trusting yourself. So one of my affirmations actually for a little while was, I trust myself. So I encourage you to look at where can you trust yourself to decide something today. And if you need I trust myself as your affirmation this week, you're welcome. Here it is gifted to you. But all the things, I would love to hear from you. You can still purchase the book. Just get in touch with me, join my group, tag me on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. But I really appreciate your time, Walnut. I appreciate you buying my book. I'm an author now, my first ever published book. I appreciate your investment in me and your time, your investment in your time in me as well. And I love you so much. You're beautiful, you're sexy, and you're delicious. Happy Walnut Wednesday. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.